Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Conway. If you love what you're listening to, please like and subscribe to my channel on whatever podcast platform you listen to and on YouTube so I can keep bringing you these amazing women and sharing their stories. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you love it as much as I do. All right, this show is sponsored in part by PowerfulWomenUSA.com. Head there to see all previous shows, and by Jackie Mahaly Photography, where personal branding, photography, and video help women entrepreneurs over 40 feel confident, beautiful, and seen. Start getting paid what you're worth. JackieMahaly.com when it's time to elevate your brand and your image. Hey everybody, I'm Jill Conway, and this is Secrets of Powerful Women, a show dedicated to celebrating and supporting strong and successful women and sharing their stories. I'm hoping you will be inspired to pursue your own goals, reclaim your voice, and discover your strengths. So my guest today, everybody, is Eugenie Jones, and she's an award-winning jazz singer with a gorgeous voice and a new album out. And she also owns her own marketing agency. Like, she's every woman, right? So Eugenie, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jill. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So I want to say congratulations on the new album, because it still didn't come out that long ago.
Yes, thank you. It's still got some legs to it, so
Yeah.
congratulations is fine.
So tell me then, how did it, what I love about your story is that you have just a golden voice, but your story is kind of like, you did something else, and you rediscovered kind of who you are. You found the callings of your soul, or you listened to the callings of your soul. So let's start there. How did this come about? What were you doing, and how did you become this jazz singer and songwriter?
Well, in terms of career, I think the line of continuity throughout my lifetime has been communications and also entrepreneurship. I've always been wanting to lead my ship, and I've always been gifted in terms of communications. So communication skills are something that has involved every aspect of my career. I went to college and got an undergrad and graduate degree in marketing, and came out and had a career in marketing communications. And I still work in marketing communications in my own firm, Bright Ideas, which I really enjoy doing. And it also greatly facilitated my ability as a musical artist to have that background with me. It wasn't until 2008, I think, was when I became aware of the fact that I could sing. Um, I know people laugh and they think, oh, well, you had to know you could sing, but
Sure.
I grew up in church with my parents singing. My mother was a soprano lead in the choir. My father was a deacon and led the choir. He was the conductor for the choir.
So you grew up around music.
I grew up
Yeah.
around it, but
Yeah.
I never had any ambition to be a singer. I wasn't this little girl in front of the mirror with a hairbrush. Someday I'm going to be Whitney
Or the
Houston or something like
deodorant.
that.
Or the
Yeah,
deodorant. That was.
yeah. But what happened was my mom, who is a huge influence in my life, she lived with me the last 7 years of her life after I had left home and relocated to the Seattle area, raising two children, marriage, and what have you. And she was diagnosed with cancer. And
Oh.
then I lost her. And you go through the grieving process of losing someone that you love. And that was one aspect of it. But there was something else, like I recognized over time that I just missed hearing the sound of her singing, because she sang all the time. She sang around the house when she was cooking, cleaning, whatever. And when I recognized that, I started to wonder, can I carry on that part of her? And that was the road that began my music career. From there, I started going to vocal jams in Seattle, discovered that I really did have a voice, because I would step off the stage when I sang a song and people would say, wow, you have a great voice. And I would look around like, who are they talking to? But that was when I really discovered, the voice, the depth and breadth of my voice. And I loved the feeling of telling stories and singing songs. And that just was like a whole other world opened up for me that I had not imagined before that. And so that's how my music career got started. Starting going to vocal jams, hanging out, learning around some other people. Then I started booking my own performances, hiring my own musicians. Then I'm out there singing and performing. Why not
Mm.
write my own music? And I had
Right.
never written songs before. Recorded my first album in 2013. Didn't know what I was doing, but managed somehow to get recognized in the industry standard for jazz, and that was Downbeat, 3.5 out of 4 stars on my first album.
It's amazing.
And that just began my pathway to, to where I'm at.
I mean, it's amazing too. And your voice has been compared to some legends like Abby Lincoln, Aretha Franklin. Oh my God. Right. And personally, I think because I've listened and I listened to your Starlight Starbright and your other songs and it's very moving. But I think your voice kind of reminds me of Natalie Cole
Uh,
and which I mean, like it's just beautiful. As soon as I heard, I was like, oh gosh, I this reminds me of Natalie Cole. I mean, and I love her voice. I miss her voice, right?
yeah.
But you do ballads, you do blues, you do jazz swing, like you all the classics, and you do them all with ease. So if it's so funny to me that this is what 10 years you've been doing this.
12 years now. My first album released in 2013. I had my first professional gig, and I say the word professional loosely, in 2011. And
Mm,
that it just kind of started from there. And now I have 6 albums out. um, Over the course of the years. And what I'm really proud about, and I believe I distinguished myself, was that I was always a singer songwriter from the very beginning. My first album was 9 original songs that I had written, and worked with a composer to get down on charts,
mhm.
and then 2 jazz standards. Uh, but
Wow.
from the very beginning in 2013, that was not very prevalent. You didn't see vocalists, jazz vocalists particularly, doing
Yeah.
originals. They had a history of just recovering standards over and over again with a different twist to it.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I'm going to pay the money for recording, why not record my own songs?
Hmm.
And maybe someday my kids will have rights to something that'll be like a Dolly Parton, Whitney Houston thing, where they
Oh,
own the rights to some song and just blows everyone away. But I wanted it to be me. I've always been very strong about having my own identity. I wanted to be associated as being a unique individual, not a cookie cutter. And
mm.
even now on my profile, you'll see the word outlier, which basically means I'm outside the bubble, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
Do you think that comes with age? Because I mean, like I'm 53. I feel like you get to a certain point where you're like, I don't care. I don't care what other people think. I'm doing me.
Yeah, I think I've always been that way
Well,
because I can remember, as an example, this just came to my mind in junior high, culottes became the thing. Everybody was wearing culottes.
I never look
And
good in them. Yeah,
someone's out there saying, what the heck is culottes? And they're Googling it right now.
right.
But I never wore them
Yeah.
because I had a good sense of what looked good on me and what didn't. And I had skinny legs, and I'm not walking around with 2 little toothpicks with these pant skirt things on. So I've always been that person that was okay with not being like everybody else. And as a matter of fact, I think I've always wanted to not be like everybody else. And I've always gravitated. Now, I agree with you. Confidence over time, experience emboldens you
Mm,
and gives
yeah.
you the courage to be who you are and not make apologies for it. And I think those are the kind of things that develop in time, which is why I think older women have an advantage over younger
Yeah.
women in that regard because of our experiences. If we're wise and grow from those experiences, they can have a tremendous impact on our life if we choose for them to.
Right. Right. Now you said you're still doing marketing now. That's your day
Yep.
job.
Yep. Yep.
That's
That's
your
my
day.
day job that pays for my night job.
Well, I mean, that's a big project. I mean, I would think. To when do you find time to write your songs?
You know, I don't typically just sit down and say I'm going to write a song. It just kind of comes to me in bits and pieces, and I just record them in a recorder as I'm thinking about it as it comes to my mind. And then at some point, it's like you kind of like baking a cake. You put one ingredient in, and then you put one more ingredient in, and then that's the way songwriting is for me. It starts with this, and you add that, you sit on it for a while, and you go back, you add a little bit more over time until you have a complete song. So I that's usually the way my songs come together. And even in the recording studio, we go in with a complete song, it ends up getting changed in a recording studio. I changed my
Mm.
mind about something or the other, or I want to do something different than what we planned. So it's a perpetual process of evolving into something that ends up being the final product.
Mm. I read that you say this album is different from your previous one, Players, because it was a shift on your mental focus. What did you mean?
Well, Players was you talk about my marketing background. Players was very much a marketing project. It was the bells and whistles of a marketing project. It was basically an analysis to say, who am I as a product in the market, and what have I
Mm.
done previously, and how can I differentiate myself from those projects, and also put a stamp on the industry as being someone unique and interesting. What's the next step? And Players was a way for me to collaborate with some of the best people in the industry, to rub elbows with them, because steel sharpens steel.
Mhm, that's
and
true.
and over that process of recording, learning and becoming more confident myself as a musician, but also learning for some of the jazz greats that are out there. One of my most One of the people that I admire most and have the greatest affection in my heart for is Reggie Workman. He was just very instrumental in me pulling together Players, and the concept behind Players was, I'm going to record in each region of the United States with a different
Yeah.
set of master artists in each region, and that's going to be this marketing hook for Players. That was my
Mhm.
business head. But
Mhm.
in terms of Eugenie, it wasn't about a business head. It was about a heart head, and about how I feel emotionally, and about who I am at this point, and not having to do anything that I didn't want to do, but putting everything in here that was important to me. So you see originals. You see standard jazz standards that are not very often recorded. And then you also saw songs like Aretha Franklin's Natural Woman and Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man, because those are songs that I grew up with, and I feel they're classics in the same right that the Great American Songbook is a classic. So I
Mhm.
wanted to give honor to those songs. So when people say, you sound like Aretha Franklin, she's an idol.
Yeah.
She's a demigod as far as I'm concerned.
Right,
And
right,
so is
right,
Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was
right.
doing things that these people are just now catching up to
Mhm.
in terms of
Right,
artistic development and design
right.
of music. So it
Yeah.
was important to me to pay homage to the people that inspired me and made my life more rich and full because of their existence, because of their music. And that's what's the difference between Players and Eugenie. Eugenie
Mm.
is a personal, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, and this is where I'm going. Come along for the ride or not. And Players was
Mm.
more about, okay, business wise, what can we do? How can we break into the market? And who can we do that with? So
Right.
there were important songs in Players, heart written songs and beautiful pieces of work, but it was a strategy totally different than the strategy behind putting together Eugenie.
Hmm. So, what inspires you? I mean, take us through the process of writing a song or an album. I would think it's a lengthy process, or is it one of those things like in the middle of the night you wake up with a line buzzing in your head or in the shower, and you're like, oh my god, I have to write that down.
Yeah. Right now, the line buzzing in my head is Miss Rachel from Netflix. And
Okay.
if you don't have any grandchildren, you probably don't know this.
No, I don't know that. I don't know. That's
But
funny.
she's this early education teacher. She has a program on Netflix for children, and she has all these wonderful songs. And I have a grandson, and I'm singing these songs with him all the time. So in the middle of the night, I have earworms of Miss Rachel, but
Oh,
which I find completely humorous. But in any
right.
case, in terms of my songs, I do, whenever a song comes to me, sometimes it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm not going to write it down. I'm not going to record it. If it's really important, it'll come back up again. Other songs will be like, a piece will come up, couple days later, it'll come up again and then
Hmm.
again and again. And then that's my cue. This is good. You need to work on focus on this and get it written down. And then I'll be more deliberate in trying to create the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, I'm always a storyteller. I'm always trying to tell a story. I'm not trying to create some hook that you hear 50,000 times over the course of a song and it has no real meaning. I want people to
Yeah.
hear my music and walk away feeling lifted, edified, or inspired, or touched, or like, oh, she gets me. She knows where I've been and what I'm going through.
Mhm.
That's why my songs are very much structured as stories.
I love that. What is the quickest you've ever written a song?
That's funny because I was just talking about this the other night at a gig. Uh, Sad Night Blues. Sad Day, Night Blues was on my very first album. It's a blues tune, of course. And that song came so quick to me. I swear I sang it like over the first 5 minutes, I had that song down.
Wow.
And I called a friend of mine at that time, Overton Berry. He was a mentor to me as well. And I said, Overton, I got to sing this song for you because it came so fast. I want to make sure that I'm not just singing someone else's song. Did I really write this? And he listened to it. He cracked up. He said, "You so crazy." That was one of his favorite phrases for me. You're so crazy. But he says, no, that is not an
Well, because
existing
you think
song.
like, where did I hear this in the car or did I
Yeah,
hear this
yeah,
somewhere?
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the one occasion. Other songs are more laborious.
Mm,
They're more deliberate in terms of the messaging of what I'm trying to say. One of the hardest songs I think were for me was "There Will Be Thorns" on that was on the Players LP. And sometimes I want to write songs. I deliberately approach them with an idea of them being something that will lift people's hearts
right.
or give them a different perspective, make them feel encouraged if they're in a dark space.
Mhm.
And "There Will Be Thorns" was one of those songs where I
Mm,
was talking about the fact that if you're trying to accomplish something, you're going to have to go through the thorns of the roses. You just can't pluck the roses. You got to go through the thorns to get to the roses. And
yeah.
so be strong, be encouraged. And so that song was very deliberate in its phraseology and the messaging behind it because I had a specific message I wanted to share and give to people to encourage them. So, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful because I think, and so much of this show, and I talk to entrepreneurs and artists and Olympic athletes, and they all say the same thing. The going gets rough sometimes, and you need that voice to say, "You come on, you got get up, you got this, go. Don't stop, don't listen to the negatives, don't listen to the critics, just keep going." Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
absolutely believe that, at the end of the day, for anyone in any discipline, your why has to be the
mm,
most important thing to you. You have to know
mm,
why you're doing what you're doing
mhm,
because you're going to have difficulties, and that why will carry you through those difficulties. Um, I look back now over my career, 12 years now. My
mm.
mother was never alive to hear me, to see me,
Oh, she hears you.
and
She hears you.
yeah, and I believe that. And I believe that she is proud of me and would
Mm,
have been proud of me to sit in an audience anywhere. She would have been calling all her friends and saying, my girl, this, my girl, that. And I want my children to look back at me in the same way and my
right,
grandchildren even. So I'm not just living my life for me and my why isn't just about me. And I think our power and our strength comes from the how important our why is and how many hearts and minds are connected to that why. And
right.
that will keep us strong. And
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
grit and perseverance go a long way.
right. Well, what's some of the struggles that you've had to overcome?
Oh,
As I know, I read that. I mean, listen, the music industry is predominantly male. Who are the people who make the decisions, right? Are
yeah.
predominantly male. So that was that especially a struggle for you, or you leaned on the right people who showed up when you needed them?
I had to find the right people, and I think it's harder in the music industry. Music industry has a paradigm of mentorship.
Mm,
Most people that have a degree of success, they've been mentored along the way by someone that's further down the line than they are. Some of them jazz greats and some of them just more experienced in the industry, but they've become successful because they have um, family members that were in the industry, grandfather,
right.
father, or whatever, and that opens doors for them. And sometimes people just have the financial wherewithal because there's a lot of money as an independent artist required for manufacturing, production, publicity, radio
Wow.
promotion, graphic arts, photography. All of that stuff is huge amounts of money. And so you have to have all of those abilities to generate that. But I think it is difficult, or has been difficult for me because um, in some regards, yes, it is a male dominated industry. And I've dealt with that bias on the bandstands in the recording room and
Mhm,
in every other facet. But I know what I want to do, and I surround myself with people. I do my best to surround myself with people who are going to be encouraging to that motive and what I'm trying to accomplish. And
mhm.
if I'm not surrounded by them and I have to speak up and stand up for myself, I'm okay. with doing
Mm-hmm.
that. And you have to have the confidence to say, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but I disagree with you. And this is why. And, so you have to be able to stand firm and move forward in your own dream, in your own direction. Otherwise, your life, your music, whatever you're doing ends up being a reflection of somebody else and not you. And what's the point if it's not you?
Right.
And I felt that very strongly on my very first project. I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have a very good idea that this is what I want to accomplish. And at the end of the day, when I laid my head to the pillow, good, bad, or indifferent, at least I know I was true to myself. So I'm
Right.
I'm I'm all in that
Right.
regard, just being true to myself.
Do you have any people, clients who find out, marketing clients who find out that you are a jazz singer and songwriter and incredible at what you do, and they're kind of like, "What? Is that you?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that a lot because even in my hometown, I live in a small town. uh, across the water from Seattle. And I've lived here for a long time, and people knew me in various
Mm,
careers. I
mhm,
wrote for a newspaper for a long time. I wrote a weekly fitness and wellness column. I have children that grew up here, so I was a mom in
mhm,
schools.
mhm,
We had a church we went to as a family, and I also worked in nonprofit in housing and homeless nonprofits, doing
mhm.
marketing communications work for them. So a lot of people knew me for those things.
Right.
And then add singing to that. And
Right.
people outside of this little community were knowing that I was a singer before this community did.
Right.
And even the people that are outside this community that I've worked with, I worked in Seattle with in government offices, and they found out that I was singing as well and had a prolific career, and they were shocked because I
Mm,
never said anything. I tend not to mix the two because people have this tendency that a lot of people are very singularly focused. They have a career and they're very singularly focused on that one career.
mhm,
I am what you might call a multi-potentialite.
mhm,
I have strong skill sets in multiple different areas, and I can easily flex between one or the other and be successful in them and still be equally committed to the success of each of those tracks of my life. People will think of you, if they know that you're invested in something else, that you're not really serious about this marketing work, or you're not really
mhm.
serious about this singing work because you're still doing this, that, and the other. So small minds, small ideas. And so am very careful about trying to keep those lives separate, and so that one's not negatively impacted by the other.
Right. Oh my gosh, you're so right, Eugenia. Because it's so funny because I was in news for 20 years. I was in TV news, and then I went into real estate, which I'm still in. And when I've been in and out of the radio kind of news thing back and forth a little bit here and there. But when I started to do radio show and podcast, I had people who haven't seen me saying, what are you doing now? What are you up to now?" And it's almost in a negative way they say it,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
and it's like, "Well, you know what? I'm killing it at that too, by the way. I can do more than one thing." And I think we should start trying to teach that in the schools. Like, you don't have to, you know, you can give everything a lot. You can succeed in multiple ways, in multiple facets, and it's okay. It shouldn't
yeah,
be frowned upon, you know?
yeah. Yeah, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about cast your bread upon the water because you never know what's going to come back and be fruitful. So
Right.
it's basically advocating for do multiple things, do many things. Never wait for the
Mhm,
right season to do something because there's always going to be rain, there's always going to be difficulties, and you'll never find the right time if you're waiting for that right
mhm,
time. You just go out there, commit yourself to it, make it happen, and then handle the peaks and valleys as they come. But
mm,
it's not. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do multiple things, and don't shrink to accommodate other people's perceptions of who they think you should be. They're putting their limitations on you, and it's
right.
important that you not let people define who you are, but you define yourself.
Oh gosh, I love it. I love it. Um, I wanted to talk about you didn't study music in school, like you said. You went for so did you feel like were you nervous at that even though music was so much a part of your life with your parents and choir and church and were you worried that you didn't have professional training at one point and that would be like, like you didn't want to
Yeah.
say it,
Right, right. Yeah, and I thought that way when I first got started. Now, like you were saying earlier, you just get to the
Yeah.
point you're kind of like, ah, psh, yeah. But you know what?
Right.
What kind of sunk it for me was I started realizing how many other professionals out there don't read music and didn't have
Yeah.
that ability in order to be successful. James
Right.
Brown was one. Elvis
Right.
Presley was another. There's
Right.
just tons
There's
and
totally
tons
so
of
many.
there's
Yeah.
so many out there. But this is the thing though, Jill. What I have, they could never teach me in a school. Do you
Bam.
understand? You understand that? It's
Mm-hmm.
like they could never teach me in a school to be inspired and to tell stories the way that I tell stories.
Right.
That's my intuitive, I want to say, passed down from my mother, God-given talent, whatever you want to say. But it didn't come
Mhm.
from a school, because if it did, all those kids graduating from school would come out and be prolific songwriters.
Right.
But they're not, you know. And some of the people that resent you, they resent you because you're doing things that they can't do. Even with their years of experience and their graduate degrees and everything else, they still can't do some of the things that you're doing. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
pretty much decided I'm good. I'm great. My music is great. I like my music. I feel good about this album. Not everybody feels that way about it, but that's okay. You know, not
Right.
everybody likes vanilla ice cream. Not everybody likes
Right.
Rocky Road. Some people like chocolate. And
Right.
this is my scoop of ice cream, and I'm going to define it the way that I want to define it. I'm going to eat it and enjoy it, every single bit of it. So
Yeah.
there.
I love it. I love it. Are you going to be traveling? Like, do you travel a lot performing or
I
with this
do.
album?
I do. I went to, gosh, where have I been? I have performances scheduled for, I've been to New York twice.
Ooh.
Going to DC soon, going to LA soon. I have some shows coming up here regionally. I'm also the executive producer of a jazz walk here that happens every year.
Mm.
It's been 8 years now that I've been producing this jazz walk. It commemorates the legacy of African American music in Seattle. And last year we had about 1,600 people
Wow.
who participated, and I hire bands, I do the publicity for it, I
Oh my
do the
goodness.
fundraising for it, and everything else. So basically I put my music career on hiatus for about 3 months for producing this jazz walk every year. Last year before last, I received Jazz Journalists Association's Jazz Hero Award for intersecting jazz with community service, because the Jazz Walk makes a donation to nonprofit organizations that serve human needs in King County. So
Mm.
all those different careers that I had, nonprofit work, advertising work, and now my music career, they all intersect for me to have the ability to do the things that I'm doing in my life.
Yeah, for sure. You're very involved still. You're the founding board member, board president rather, of the Music Discover Center, which is a nonprofit that provides disadvantaged youth access to music instruction. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, tell it. What's it? Yeah.
That was a nonprofit that we started here in Kitsap County, and we started like right in the middle of COVID, which
Mm.
was like really hard.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of foundational work that had to be done: mission statement, nonprofit status, core values, uh, board members, orientation for
Wow.
board members, websites, social media. I was involved in the launch of all of those steps along the way as the founding board president. And it was a lot of work to get things done and up and running. I since then have stepped down from that organization. I also have another nonprofit called Music for a Cause that
Oh my
basically
goodness.
puts on the Jasmine Street Jazz Walk. And then I have my music career and my marketing communications work. So I had to do a hard analysis over, okay, this is everything you're doing. What are you going to give up? Because you can't take on
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
So I still do that kind of work, but and I still am involved in the community, but not leading that organization. Being a leader is quite different than being a board member. You just kind of float in and out. It's all good. But at the end of the day, the leader has to make everything happen, you know?
Yeah. Right. Well, what is I'm curious, what does your son say about mom as the jazz singer? You know? What do they say?
I love my kids to death. I'm blushing because I love them so much and I want them to be proud of me. And I believe that they are. When
Mm.
they were little, though, my youngest, who's 25 now,
Mm.
this kid is too much like me. God apparently has a sense of humor, because when I was
He does.
pregnant, I was saying, I don't want a girl because a girl's going to be too
Um,
much like me and too hard to handle. And he came out a boy, but he's just like me. And he, the same kind of attitude. So he says to me when he was younger, um, I say, listen to my music, listen to my music. I get him to listen. And they're like 9 and 12 years old, and they're not into
mhm.
jazz. So
Right.
my youngest son says to me, Mom, I love you, but I don't like your music.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he's just very, yeah. But
Yeah,
now
that's
he's
how they are.
25. He
Right.
listens to my stuff. He's proud of
Uh-huh.
me. He shares it with his friends. He subscribes to my YouTube channel. So he's grown up to mature and appreciate jazz more. And also, be more verbally supportive of me.
Right. Well, I mean, those are tough years, they don't think anything we do when they're that
Oh,
young
no.
is
No, no,
cool
no.
or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are any of them singers?
No, my oldest son plays piano by ear,
Oh
and
boy.
they were both in piano lessons for a while, and till they got to the point where they were old enough to retaliate against me,
Right.
and say, no, we don't want to do it anymore. But I don't know, who knows what tomorrow might bring.
Yeah.
I never imagined doing what I'm doing at this point, and I didn't come to this until 12 years ago. That means I had a lifetime of other experiences before it came to the point where I realized that I could sing, that I loved singing, and that I could write. I love writing,
Mm,
and I love getting up in front of people and telling those stories and seeing the looks on their faces and expressions on their faces, and knowing that I've touched them in an emotional way and lifted their hearts. That's so gratifying to me. But that was something that I didn't have when I was
right.
20, you know?
Right. Right.
So your life is always evolving and always changing. I want to encourage my kids to be willing and open to change, to open their arms to change and not be shut down by they see changes in their lives, because changes are opportunities for growth and for realizations that you otherwise may not have come to accomplish.
I love that. I mean, we're all human and we all have sometimes, the doubts that creep into our mind or the like, what am I thinking? Or, am I crazy type of thought? Like, how do you stop the negative critical voice that enters in either in the middle of a recording or when someone's, how do you put that into check? Cause you have to stay positive. It is a mindset 100%. And even the most confident person, that voice comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's a matter of immediate dismissal,
Mm,
of immediately saying that's a lie, and I don't believe that. And I also believe in having strong affirmations embedded in your heart and your mind and even around you. If you could see my desk right now, there's a little monitor behind me and it's covered with little notes all over it. And, all those little notes of encouragement are for me. So when I glance up, it's to bring me back to center. So if I get into a phone call that's frustrating or in a situation that's frustrating and I get angry or whatever, I can pull myself back to center with those affirmations and that sense of who I am and what's important to me.
yeah.
Um, because there's just times when you're just going to have a rough day. You're going to have a
Yeah.
rough patch. I think the other thing too, I got to say, Jill, though, is I think it's important to acknowledge those feelings. Don't shove them down in a corner like they don't exist. I mean,
Right.
I let them out and fully vet them and experience them, because then I can reconcile them and put them to bed. Sometimes people aren't honest with themselves about the
Mm,
questions that they have in their minds, and I think, or the doubts they have in their hearts. And I think it's better to address those things and confront them rather than pretend that they don't exist. When you confront them, then put them down once and for all, but don't
right.
pretend that they don't exist.
Right. Well, because that doesn't help you, right? And then
No,
I ask like, why am I feeling that way? Who said that? Am I saying that to myself? Why would I say something like that? It's not true. Right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
play
and
that
even get
game.
to even be to the point where I really seek out people that I feel are sages. That
Mm,
they're live and learn from fools and from sages. You learn from the fools, you learn from the sages. That's
yeah.
Aerosmith, by the way.
Yeah.
But if you can surround yourself with those kinds of people that are sage wise and maybe not to confess every little thing to them, but just to be around them and see how they process difficulties in their lives, and how they're leading their lives can be an encouragement to you. And then some people are fools. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way, but honestly, there are some fools out there.
Yeah,
And
sure.
sometimes it's just good to just politely say, thank you, I appreciate that, and
Right,
move on.
right, right.
Don't necessarily take in and absorb everything that someone says to you, because who knows you better than you? You know,
I
if you're
love it.
honest with yourself, who knows you better than you?
Right, right. I wanted to ask you who, if there's anyone you could have a duet with, who would it be?
Me that question another time, and my answer's still the same. I would have loved to have sang with Marvin Gaye. You know,
Oh,
Tammy Terrell and Marvin
beautiful.
Gaye. I mean,
Mm,
those were some great songs growing up. Um,
his
I
voice
have,
was,
oh,
uh, yeah, smooth. Yeah.
and
Wow.
that's another, just another point to what I was saying earlier about how you're some people are just gifted with those things. You can't learn those things. You just you know, I didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to give myself a voice, or I'm going to be a singer. You know, that was a gift that was a part of who I am. And I just chose to nurture it, develop it, and make it into the best it could possibly be. Other people may realize that they have that gift too, and they may sit on it and do nothing with it. Or they try, but they don't have the bandwidth and the wherewithal to stick with it and have the grit and tenacity to hold on no matter what. And I
Right.
was just discussing this with my husband yesterday. I was talking about the fact that I believe one of the reasons that I've gone as far as I've gone is that I'm willing to do anything and everything for my music. I believe in my music that much. And so I've made every sacrifice, every worked so hard, traveled all over the country, paid so much money to get the right people in the room, because I believe in what I'm doing. I know it has value, and no one can take that concept of me away
Mm,
from me. And I think that's important for your listeners. They need to have that concept of who they are, the value that they bring to the table, and never be persuaded to think otherwise about
mm.
themselves.
I was going to say, what's your advice to someone, any woman who wants to start something new at any age, or, even a young singer who says, yeah, I'm thinking of becoming a singer. What's your advice for
Yeah.
that?
You know, I've had young women come up to me in some of my performances. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll check out the show. They'll come up to me afterwards and ask my advice, or say, okay, would you be willing to work with me? And, my life, that as I've been describing to you, my plate is beyond full. So
Yes.
I do not have the time or the bandwidth to take on mentoring another singer, but I do recommend things for people, give them advice. And there was one time that I came close and really considering helping this young lady, and I gave her a task to do. And I can't remember what the task was. It was something about learning some songs, then coming back and talking to me afterwards. And she never came back again.
Oh my goodness. Well, then
Yeah, she
maybe
never came back.
she didn't want it that bad then,
Well,
right?
then that's my point. Some people look at you on the outside looking in. They have a totally different expectation about what's going on inside your head, heart, and mind for you to
Mhm.
be able to do what you're doing. I'm up every day at 4:30 in the morning. I'm in front of my computer most nights at 9 o'clock, where I'm saying, okay, that's it. I'm
Right,
shutting down. I got to get off of here. And I stop
right,
in between all of that to stop and cook breakfast, or stop and cook dinner for my family, or to go do my grocery shopping, or to do
right,
something around the house. And I'm still mixing in all these different things, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of organizational skills, a lot of commitment. And then on top of that, I got to take care of my body. I got to exercise. I got to have my spiritual self together. And so a lot of people, I feel like there's room at the top, but they're not willing to do the work to get there, and to do
mm,
the climb. Even if it means crawling up there on your knees, are you willing to do it? I mean, that's analogous, but still, sometimes the work feels that way. You feel that way sometimes, that you're working so hard all the
right,
time. And when is it going to get easier? And
right.
I haven't reached that sweet spot. And I'm still going for it. I'm still going
I
for it.
think you're about to.
Thank
I
you.
think I believe in you. I think this is the album that does it. If you had to give yourself advice, young Eugenie, what would it be? Little Eugenie,
What did it be?
life advice. Yeah.
Gosh, I was always so willful and so strong. And I was very black and white as a child. It's either this or it's either that, you know, and very determined. But now as an adult, I realize there's more gray in there.
Mhm.
And I'm more comfortable in not feeling like everything has to be emphatically designated as being this or being that. There can be some wiggle room in between. And I
Mhm.
tend to be hard on myself. Um,
Mhm.
Even as a child, my younger sister, I remember her telling me as children, getting ready for church and in front of the mirror. And I can't remember what we were talking about, but she said to me, you're just too hard on yourself. And even to this day and age, I have to remind myself to give myself some wiggle room, to not be so, you know, driven on
Determined.
my, yeah,
Yeah.
determined and
Yeah.
driven about myself. Like, for me, it's so my album charted at number 4 on Jazz Week. That means of all the music released across the world in jazz, that my album was number 4. I mean, Foreplay, who this incredible jazz band, been in the industry much, much longer than I am, have been. They were just behind me, and then they shot up to number 1. And I was telling a friend, I'm not going to make it to number 1 because there's heavy hitters in there now, and they're on the charts, they're climbing. And he said to me, Eugenie, some people aren't even on the charts, and they're not on the charts, and they didn't make it to number 4. And I said, yeah, that's right. But I'm very competitive, wanting to be the best, competitive against myself, not competitive against other people, that I'm always looking to say, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? And
Mm.
I would just like to say to the younger Eugenie, don't do that all the time. Give yourself just be happy with what you've accomplished. Pat yourself on the back, and, don't always be driving for the next, what's next. So that would be
Right.
my advice.
That's, it's funny. It's same with me. I'm like, I sometimes you're like, Jill, lighten up, slow down and enjoy,
That's
you
the
know,
synopsis of everything I just said. Lighten up.
lighten up, enjoy, just go with the flow. It doesn't have to be your way all the time.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. You just have, I think, just when you have aspirations and desires, and they're strong. Sometimes they can be so strong that they diminish the good things that are already happening around you. So you
Mhm.
have to stop and take it in and enjoy what you've accomplished. And that would be my advice, to myself. And even now I'm telling myself, slow down. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of looked at my schedule and said, what can you do and still make time for some you time? Because people will ask me, what do you do to relax?
Yeah.
What's your enjoyment? And I really stumble over that question because, besides working out, um, I don't really feel like I do a lot of me things, and I
Mhm.
need to do more of that.
Well, but maybe that workout is like for me, I feel the same way. Like for me, like that, it's therapy. It's like it's like a walking meditation when
Yeah,
that you can
yeah,
like clear your head, find your center. I would love to meditate more than I do, but I don't often just sit for 45 minutes.
right,
I
right,
wish.
right.
I wish I could. I would have to
Yeah.
get up extremely early, but maybe, you know. But what about
Yeah,
you? Do
I
you
mean, I
meditate or
have to
anything?
make myself schedule time for my
Yeah.
workouts, and I,
Yeah.
I, I will make myself do that. But and one thing that I've started doing recently is watching basketball with my husband, and I've always liked basketball because it's fast action. I even played when I was in junior high, and so I get a kick out of that, going to a sports bar, sitting
Mhm.
with my husband, having a drink, and watching the game and arguing about things. So that is something that I'm starting to make especially with the playoffs around the corner. I'm
Mhm.
definitely going to have some time in front of the TV with my husband watching basketball playoffs.
I would love to hear what his opinion, to know you, to be with you for so long, right? And your mom and you're a marketer and you're a CEO and all of this. Now my wife's a jazz singer. Like, was he like confused, or what was
Oh,
his reaction?
I have the most incredible husband in the world, I think. I'm sure every other wife would say the same. But he's perfect for me. He's the perfect balance, the yin and yang. And he's the one that helps me keep perspective, encourages me, and helps me. And he's a very intelligent person, which is what drew me to him in the first place. I can talk to him about anything and everything, from politics to religion to my music to my business, marketing, communications. I can talk to him about anything, and he has the bandwidth to intelligently talk back to me. And he's encouraging to me about what I'm trying to do, even when it's difficult and I have hard days and things happen, or I feel hurt or injured by what someone else has done or said. He's that solve that, just makes me feel okay at the end of the day, or
Yeah.
gives me some space to reconcile it on my own and know when to step away.
Well, that's a big one, but that's very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my goodness. All right. So the founder, the Bright Ideas, is that the marketing company, your marketing
yep.
company?
Yep. Bright Ideas is my marketing organization. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like what I'm doing. So I was under contract with King County Department of County Assessments. And my project that I was working on, wait for it, data-driven solutions to the affordable housing crisis in King County. And that was my project. So it involved research, focus groups, surveys, analysis, stakeholders, community stakeholder evaluations, and then recommendations for how county assessments could add value to solving the problem with housing in King County. And I actually came up with some wonderful things that came to life because of my research and my marketing. And I'm very, very proud and pleased at that. I wouldn't have not wanted to do that because I said I'm a singer. I
Right.
don't do that, you know,
Sure.
um, because this is something that's important too. That this
Right.
is something that adds value to people's lives, and so um, I love what I do with my Bright Ideas marketing communications company. It's a lot of challenge, a lot of work, and I enjoy it.
Hmm. All right. Well, I think we're running out of time, but I did want to, where do people go if they, to get more information for you? Is there a newsletter they can get on and download and
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing to do is to go to my website, eugeniejones.com, because there you can find my music, you can find my newsletter, um, anything and everything, my bio, everything there is to know about me is pretty much on my website.
events coming up where you'll be
And my
performing?
shows are always going to be on there as well. I have a lot of regional things going on. I'm producing an event called Jazzy Brush Strokes, and it's going to be a live jazz performance while an artist is creating a piece of art.
Oh,
And they're going to
wow.
paint this piece of art, and then we're going to raffle it off, and it's going to raise money for the Jazz Walk that's coming up in September. So that event's coming up in June, and I also am headed to LA for a performance in June. So the best thing to
Wow.
do is to get on that website and see all the performances and see how you can get involved to get connected. At the very least, my album's only $20, you guys. Go out there and buy my album, you know? Don't stream it, because streaming means I get exactly 0.013
Oh,
cents for every. So
that's
if you want
true.
to support, go down and download an album for the price of a couple cups of coffee.
Oh my God. Are you on Spotify? Do you have a channel on Spotify with all your music?
I'm on
Yeah.
Spotify, anything that's out there, Pandora, um, Apple, iTunes, whatever, da, da, da. But go to Bandcamp. If you want to get my music, go to Bandcamp, or just go to my website. They'll take you to Bandcamp, because Bandcamp pays a greater percentage of the revenue collected to the artist, as opposed to Spotify and those other companies. They don't
Right.
pay as much to the artists. They're making a tremendous amount of business off of us poor artists as we go out there and try to make it happen for ourselves. But if you want to support me, I advise you to go on my website and get my music that way.
Oh, I love it. I want to see you when you come back to New York. I would love to go in to see
Oh,
you. So,
I
yeah.
will definitely loop you in. I'm
Yeah.
working on getting some performances there now, because I have things scheduled in Baltimore and DC. And so I'd like to be able to add New York all together while I'm in that, and not have to fly back and forth from
Mm.
Seattle again.
Yeah, that's a long one. That's a long one. All right. I want to say a big thank you, Eugenia Jones, for coming on the show. Your new album called Eugenie is just fabulous. And thank you for sharing your incredible story. I hope it
Thanks,
and I
Jill.
really hope.
Wonderful, wonderful to
Yeah.
chat with you.
Thank you. And I really hope to everyone listening, I hope this inspires you, no matter what your age, no matter what you've done, pursue your dreams, and start dreaming bigger, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you join me next time. You've been listening to Secrets of Powerful Women. This show is sponsored by Jackie Mahaly Photography, where personal branding photography and video help women entrepreneurs over 40 feel confident, beautiful, and seen. Start getting paid what you're worth. JackieMahaly.com when it's time to elevate your brand and your image.